The auction hall went silent the moment I raised my hand for lot number 9. Every trader in that room had already looked away from the burned-out hull sitting under the dock lights, its metal scarred black, its nameplate melted beyond reading. Nobody wanted it. The alien buyers whispered to each other in low tones, calling it cursed, calling it a grave that should stay closed. I didn't care about curses. I cared about the price tag, and the price tag was almost nothing. I paid, signed the release form, and towed that dead ship home before anyone could change their mind. My name is Daniel Ashford, and I have spent 6 years buying broken starships nobody else wanted, stripping them for parts, and selling whatever was left. This was supposed to be an easy job. Cut open the hull, pull the wiring, sell the metal, move on to the next wreck. It did not stay easy for long. 3 days into stripping the ship, I found a wall that didn't match the blueprints. A solid plate, welded shut, hidden behind a false panel that someone had built by hand instead of machine. Whoever sealed that wall didn't want the ship's own systems to know it existed. I should have called it in. I should have left it alone. Instead, I cut through it. Behind the plate was a chamber, and inside the chamber was a girl. She was suspended in a stasis pod, pale, thin, wrapped in a fabric that shimmered faintly, even under years of dust. The moment my torch cut the last seal, the pod hissed open, and her eyes snapped wide. She came out swinging. I hit the floor hard, my torch skittering away, and she was on her feet in half a second, crouched like a fighter, breathing fast, staring at me like I was the last thing she'd ever see. "Where is the fleet?" she said. Her voice was rough from disuse, but her words came out in clear trade language. "Answer me. Where is my father's fleet?" I raised both hands slowly. "There's no fleet here. There's just me, and this ship, which I bought for scrap yesterday." She froze. Something in her face cracked open, just for a second, before she rebuilt the wall behind her eyes. "Scrap," she repeated, like the word tasted wrong. "This ship was my home." I lowered my hands an inch. "Then I'm sorry, because I already sold half of it for parts." She didn't laugh. She didn't even blink. She just studied me the way you study a predator you haven't decided how dangerous it is yet. Her name, she told me eventually, was Kessia. She did not tell me her full name, not that day. She told me only that her people were gone, that her ship had been hidden on purpose, buried inside layers of false records and fake ownership, until it looked like nothing more than a burned-out hulk worth less than the fuel to move it. It had worked. It had worked for years. Right up until a human with more curiosity than sense decided to buy it anyway. I should have handed her over to the nearest station authority. That would have been the smart thing, the safe thing, the thing that kept me out of whatever mess her people had left behind. I didn't do the smart thing. I made her food instead. Real food, warm food, the first she'd had in longer than she wanted to admit. She ate like she didn't trust it would still be there in the next second, watching me the whole time like I might take the bowl away. "You're not going to sell me," she said, not quite a question. "I don't even know what you're worth," I said, "and I'm not in that business anyway." "Everyone is in that business," she said quietly. "That's how my empire fell." She told me the rest slowly, over the following 2 days, like each piece of the story cost her something to give away. Her father had ruled a territory that stretched across a dozen star systems, until a rival power decided that territory would look better under different management. The betrayal came from inside her own court, from people who smiled at her family for years while planning the end of it. When the fleets came, her father had one thing left to protect, and it wasn't gold or land. It was her. He hid her inside a ship built to look like garbage, sealed the truth behind a wall no scanner would think to check, and let the rest of the galaxy believe his bloodline had ended with him. It had worked, until now. "They're still looking," she said. "They never stopped looking. If they find out this ship was sold, they will trace the sale back to you." I should have felt afraid. Mostly what I felt was annoyed. because I had already spent good money fixing that hull, and I did not appreciate the idea of someone showing up to take it apart looking for a girl who was no longer inside it. "Let them come," I said. "I bought this ship fair and legal. Everything inside it is mine, until I say otherwise. That includes you, unless you want to argue about it." She stared at me, like I had said something in a language she didn't know. "You would fight an entire fleet over ownership paperwork," she said slowly. "I'd fight anyone who thinks they can just walk onto my ship and take what's mine," I said. "Doesn't matter who they used to be." She didn't answer that, but something in the way she looked at me changed, just slightly, like she was recalculating a number she'd been sure of her whole life. The patrol found us 4 days later. Their ship dropped out of transit right in front of us, sleek and armored, nothing like my patched-together hauler. A voice came through on an open channel, cold and formal, demanding I power down for inspection under authority I had never heard of and had no obligation to recognize. Kessia went pale beside me. "That's them," she whispered. "That's the authority that hunted my family." I didn't power down. I opened a channel back instead. "This is a licensed independent trader," I said. "You're outside any jurisdiction that applies to me. If you have a legal claim against my cargo, file it through proper channels." There was a pause on their end, like they hadn't expected an answer that wasn't fear. "Surrender the passenger," the voice said. "This does not concern you." "She's not cargo," I said, "and she's not yours to ask for." They fired a warning shot across my hull, close enough to rattle the frame. Kessia grabbed the console beside her, breathing hard, waiting for me to do the sensible thing and give her up. I didn't. I had spent years learning every wire, every patch, every stubborn quirk of half-broken ships, just like this one, because that was the only kind of ship I could ever afford. That knowledge turned out to matter more than any weapon they had. I rerouted power out of the cargo systems and into the old reactor shielding, overloading it just enough to throw out a burst of interference that scrambled their tracking without shutting down my own controls. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't meant to hurt anyone. It was meant to buy confusion, and confusion was exactly what a scrap trader flying junk understood better than a polished military crew ever would. Their sensors lit up with false readings, ghost signals bouncing off every direction at once, and for 3 long seconds, their ship didn't know where I actually was. 3 seconds was enough. I cut hard into a transit lane too narrow for their bigger hull to follow safely, threading my ship through gaps I had memorized from years of dodging debris fields nobody else bothered mapping. Alarms screamed through my cockpit. Kessia held onto the console with both hands, eyes wide, watching me fly like I had done this 100 times before. I hadn't, but I wasn't going to tell her that. We came out the other side of the lane with hull damage, warning lights across half my board, and no pursuit in sight. For a long moment, neither of us said anything. "You could have died," Kessia finally said, "doing that for someone you barely know." "You were in my ship," I said, checking the damage readout instead of looking at her. "That makes you my problem. Simple as that." She was quiet for a while after that, watching the stars slide by outside the cracked viewport. "Where I come from," she said eventually, "no one helps without asking what they'll get first. Loyalty is bought. Protection is bought. Even family is bought in the end." "That's a rough way to live," I said. "It's the only way I knew," she said, "until a scrap trader decided ownership meant something different to him than it meant to everyone else I've ever met. We didn't have a plan beyond staying alive and staying ahead of whoever might come looking next. But for the first time since I'd cut open that hidden wall, she didn't look like someone waiting to be handed over. She looked like someone deciding, slowly, that maybe not every stranger needed a reason to be kind. Word about what happened didn't stay quiet for long. Traders talk, patrol crews talk, and somewhere out past the border, whispers started moving from station to station about a human who bought an Empire's last heir at a scrap auction and then refused to give her back to anyone, armed or otherwise. I didn't set out to make a point. I just didn't like being told what was mine wasn't mine. But out among the stars, in halls full of species who had spent centuries calculating loyalty and careful, cautious trades, that single stubborn choice was enough to make them look at humanity a little differently. Not as harmless, not as simple, as something they hadn't quite learned to predict yet. And somewhere behind me, in the cockpit of a ship that was never supposed to matter, a girl who had lost everything watched the stars and started, slowly, to believe that maybe not everything was lost after all.